Indian author, a screenwriter, and a columnist. She's written the screenplay for films like the romantic drama Anjana Anjani and the thriller Kahani. Kala has also authored 2 novels, Almost Single and Almost There. Apart from writing for films and novels, Kala has also written the television serial Airplane, which aired on Star Plus. She writes a regular hospitality column for the Financial Express called Epicuriosity and has regular columns in the Financial Chronicle, Yahoo, and the Dainik Jagran. And I'm sure you all know the session is on cuisine, and I'm really happy that people are actually today interested in what they eat. Vikas Khanna is a Michelin star chef and James Beard Award nominee. He's the host of MasterChef India, Twist of Taste, and Mega Kitchens on National Geographic. He has also appeared on television with Gordon Ramsay, Martha Stewart, and Bobby Flay, author of 34 books. He created the Holy Kitchens documentary series, Kitchens of Gratitude, and The Last Color feature film. Deutsche Welle named Khanna in the list of 10 most influential chefs in the world. He is the global ambassador for nutrition and education for Smile Foundation. Our next panelist is Chef Manjit Singh Gill. Chef Manjit Singh Gill is a corporate chef, ITC Hotels, and founder-president, Indian Federation of Culinary Associations. He has been in the food business for over 40 years and is the chairman of the World Cultural Culinary Heritage Committee. He has established the first Indian Culinary Institute in Noida, Delhi, and was given the highest honor, Lifetime Achievement Award by the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Rohit Khattar is founder-chairman of Old World Hospitality Private Limited, India's largest live entertainment company, which also operates 2 hotels, over 30 restaurants. Founded in 1990, it has won several awards. He also operates India's most comprehensive performing arts and convention center, Habitat World, India Habitat Center, New Delhi. Khattar's restaurant in New Delhi, Indian Accent, is the only restaurant from India on the world's 50 best restaurants list with outposts in New York and London. Rohit Khattar. I request Advaita to take over now.
Good morning, and I hope it's going to be a delicious start. We're starting really early this morning, so I thank you for being here. I have the easiest job in the room, actually, I think in the entire conclave, because I've been asked to introduce and be in conversation with three people who really need no introduction, so I'm not going to take too much of your time and get right to it. Starting with, of course, Chef Vikas Khanna, who really did the crossover much before Priyanka Chopra did, and I don't mean your good looks, Chef. So it's really lovely to have him here with us. As you saw, that's his debut film, which he has written, directed, and what else, Chef? Everything, right? Pretty much. I think his heart is in it as of now, but we're going to be talking about food today, and I hope he'll talk a little bit about his new journey into the world of cinema as well. So, Chef, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's very early, actually, we know that. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you for inviting me. This is amazing. You know, a few years ago, we didn't even talk about that one of India's biggest exports is actually our cuisine. We talked so much about yoga and Bollywood, and many times it was just missed out. And the last decade or so, with the rise of chefs like Manjit, Singh, Gill, and restaurateurs like Rohit, it has really put us on the map where it cannot be ignored anymore, that the food has been extremely essential of introducing the world to India. So many times you had people in the restaurant who said, first-time eaters of Indian cuisine, and they were New Yorkers, wealthy, and said, we've never tried Indian food because we were always scared. I don't know, initial projection of the cuisine, I'm sure Chef will also agree on that, was very limited. It was very difficult to even break into the market beyond $8 or $10 buffets or curries. And everyone who's lived in New York can vouch for that. It was only the 6 street restaurants. And I'm really glad with the power which, as India, as the soft power of the country, we've paid a lot of attention to food now. There have been forums and there have been discussions and events and about the creativity of Indian food. And not just the creativity, just the acceptance of the cuisine beyond chicken tikka masala has been just phenomenal. And I'm really glad to be part of a small molecule, a part of this transition of getting Indian food to the US. We saw in London, it was still extremely acceptable. And it was very amazing that most of the Americans, for them, the first introduction of Indian food was not in America, it was in London, because they couldn't escape it. And they had friends who would force them to eat Indian food. And then they will have Indian food in London. And we've always got the second chance in America when they came to your restaurants, whatever you're running at that time, and events you were doing, and people were petrified initially. And I'm really glad that, the push actually started back home when you had Bokhara becoming the center stage of Indian cuisine. And Americans would refer to Bokhara or Indian accent in New York. So it became really, in New Delhi actually more, but it was really interesting that it started getting pushed from London back to India, where it actually belonged. Home. And I'm really proud of that, and it really gets you very emotional that sometimes it's the Indian food which gets them an entry into your culture, traditions, celebration of the country. Thank you.
Next up is Rohit Khattar, who, interestingly, I met for the first time many years ago now. God, we're getting old. But we met over a discussion on films because that's his other passion. So the first time we met was not about food, but was about movies at the Oberoi, Mumbai, if I recollect. And of course, he's a maverick. Knowing him personally, I know he has an idea a minute. It could be about the next big restaurant idea. It could be the big next film idea. And just to be around him is to always be inspired and always be driven, and to always think ahead and into the future and into vistas that you didn't even know existed. So I've really drawn a lot from my friendship with him, and please.
Thanks, Advaita. as she rightfully said, I'm a jack of all trades and definitely not a master of any. There's far too many ideas and too small a lifetime. So I've enjoyed the journey. I do a little bit of performing arts and art and culture and habitat. I've taken a lot of programs, theater, music, dance, mainly to the UK, almost as a pretext, as a marketing ploy for my restaurants because I enjoy doing it. There's never really any money in performing arts, as those of you out here, my friend Jonathan knows. You've got to really be passionate about it. Where do I begin? So I studied in the US and I came back and I was bidding for this place called India Habitat Center. It seemed to be a massive red building and they had a very nice conference stage. And there was a great opportunity to somehow convert that into a cultural venue, which we've been fortunate enough to do. It still is a compromise of a stage for those of you who have actually performed there. We managed to really make it into a modern landmark of Delhi. As I mentioned, I started taking a lot of art and culture overseas. However, the interest always was to take Indian food outside, and we opened a restaurant called Chor Bazaar. I had this restaurant which was based on a thieves market idea that I opened here in 1990. Took it to London in 1997. And in London, when I entered, I recall most of the restaurants there, which were called Indian, were actually owned by Bangladeshi immigrants, mainly from a place called Sylhet. The cuisine was very, very typical. There were basically 3-4 curries, which didn't even exist in India 20 years ago, or maybe used to exist. And they used to have vindaloo and jalfrezi and rogan josh. And then he used to dunk various meats and proteins into the same 3 curries and serve it. Chor Bazaar was traditional Indian food. I actually saw the modern Indian restaurants coming up. I saw the way pre-plating was happening. And I was quite jealous. So when I got an opportunity to get a very cute little place called the Manor Hotel, I wanted to a modern Indian restaurant. And we created Indian Accent, which has done quite well. And it was fun taking it also to New York and to London, both of places where it's really been appreciated. I think India has such a massive opportunity in the area of cuisine. If you look at Japan was probably a foe of the US for 30 years. Japanese cuisine had found no favor in America. And today you can't go anywhere without seeing sushi. It's probably, it's put Japan on the world map across the world. I think Indian food's time has come. I now go to restaurants in the UK especially, which are very cool, where there are queues of people. Casual dining restaurants have been accepted. Chefs like Vikas have crossed new frontiers overseas. So I think our time has come. She mentioned films. I have always enjoyed films. Who doesn't in India? I mean, that's the 2 things we all talk about is food and films. But I've been fortunate enough to be able to get into the film business. One of the things that we did was we set up an international sales agency because we realized that independent Indian films were just not working. And that's been something which has been very, very close to my heart because we managed to actually take Indian film. There was a small little film, I don't even know whether you saw it, called Mukti Bhavan. We didn't make it, but we took it to about 50 countries and it's called Hotel Salvation overseas. So I'm delighted to see that Vikas is in the film business also because that's, no, but I was surprised. I mean, I had no idea when I saw that teaser. There's a huge role for Indian cinema, Indian culture, Indian cuisine to play overseas, and I congratulate Hari and everybody for bringing this forum together. Thanks so much.
And finally, Chef Manjit Gill. I'm also from the hospitality business. I went to the Oberoi School. And of course, chef was associated with another company who I shall not name for many, many years. And he's somebody I've known of since I started my career in hotels. I was with the Oberoi School, and for us to regard and revere somebody in the food business who was not from the Oberoi family was a big deal. So he's just somebody who's been a legend for decades, and certainly somebody I knew from day one in my career in hospitality. And a small nugget, you know, I was telling Chef earlier, I moderated a session with him a couple of years ago, and during that session, there were some chef friends of mine who were on that panel who are usually very verbose, can get acrimonious, very opinionated, very forceful, as chefs usually are. And I was alarmed because when we had the session, those chefs were absolutely silent. They would just nod, say yes, say no, and were not talkative at all. So post the session, I asked them, I said, why? You know, why were you so quiet? And they said, come on, Chef Manjit Gill was there. So he's almost like the chef, not the whisperer, but more like the chef silencer, because he just demands so much respect in the industry that most people don't really have much to say when he's around. So, Chef, over to you.
Thank you very much for your kind words. I'm very happy to be here and always keep looking for these kind of opportunities that where there is the opportunity to talk about food of India. And I very strongly believe that, you know, we are little bit, the world doesn't know about us, about food. It's only because we had, our values are such, our bringing up is such that we always thought that food is given by the Almighty. And it is not a commodity to merchandise or to sell. So we never talk about our food so much. But I think the time has come now, we have to very aggressively move forward to talk about our food, the goodness of our food, the philosophy of our food, the fundamentals, the principles of our food. And I think that will be a great contribution to the rest of the world when they will understand the science of our food, which you can say as a part of Ayurveda, which is we deal with the food. And I think we will do a great service to the world if we make them understand the Ayurvedic, which can be followed any part of the world. You can cook your own regional food, but under this fundamentals, principles, guidelines, and the philosophy what is given in the Ayurveda. So I think the time has come. Very happy that the food is now discussed in these kind of forums. And I'm sure very soon, which we are trying to struggle for a long time, that food is going to be an intellectual subject to discuss and talk. It is not only a cookery. Mostly when we talk about food, we come onto the cookery and we come on the gas range and a pan. But that's the ultimate result. That's the finale of the knowledge and the science you have. That is the result of that. If you don't understand the science behind this, don't understand the philosophy behind it, then that cookery in the pan is also not the right thing. That is why we are not able to make people understand that what is our food. So the time has come, and I think we should very strongly, till now we always felt food is the manifestation of the God, and it is for to worship. But now we have to, I think, teach the whole world, put our things into a proper into a structured form. And I think it is not the job of only the chefs. Somewhere in India, we have left the food onto the chefs. I think it is a responsibility of every person who, whether they are scientists, whether they are scientists of physiology or the doctors or the nutritionists or the Ayurvedic doctor practitioners, any engineer, any kind of engineering discipline, everybody, the whole science has to come together to work on the food, to find out how ways and means we can produce the food in a right way as per our principles and the guidelines. We need, in a modern time, with the technology, we have to, when we talk about, I like to say that when we talk about Ayurveda or we talk about traditions or we talk about the food, it doesn't mean that I'm talking or I'm trying to take you to the past. I'm talking about the future. that how we have to go into the future with technology, that the Indian engineering disciplines have to come and work, understand the food and create the equipment, create the tools, create the, like we have to understand that the Indian food, our style of cooking, on what kind of a heat it is cooked. It is on conduction, radiation or convection. So all three things are different. Equipment is different. So it is not only that the chefs or the cooks has to do on the food. The whole nation has to join together. And every discipline has to contribute. And every science, whatever development they have done, they should see that how their research of science can be applied into the food so that a common person, every citizen of that country and the world get benefit with that science. I think that time has come now.
Thank you. Just to throw this open very quickly, when we speak about cuisine and soft power, now all three of you, the one similarity that I have noted is that you're all high cuisine. But when we talk of soft power and we say the United States, then we think of McDonald's. So now I know that's very different, I could tell from Chef Vikas's expression, that's very different from your food philosophy, but that's what works, doesn't it? So how do you think that you would personally navigate that?
You know, initially I used to be not offended. I did not understand that you had the power to be offended also. I figured out that stereotyping is not that bad. Stereotyping is the first introduction. When Italians came to America or Irish came to America, they were extremely stereotyped. Their cuisine, their culture, how they talk, how they behave, how they live, how they celebrate anything, everything was stereotyped. So you're talking about that stereotyping means that they are entering the culture. Stereotyping is also, I know there's a negative connotation attached to stereotyping, and which is also one more thing with me was that, I did not speak English when I went to America. So first thing was that, it was very difficult to get a job. If you did a job, even in France when I was cooking, many chefs would tell me not to touch the pan. And in America, you worked through this. So empowerment is very necessary to break the stereotypes. When you become comfortable in what it's okay. It's okay, butter chicken is stereotyped. It's okay, at least they know about butter chicken. How many other countries we can pinpoint on the map and say, what is the dish popular from there? It's becoming, like Thai chefs struggle the same thing. I know Japanese did, but right now the Thai cuisine is coming up so fast in America. It's unbelievable. And the chefs are becoming extremely creative because they're breaking stereotypes. So then you need to have a pot in your house to break it first. So I think it's okay. And it's not against you. It's just that people are understanding and they have started speaking your grammar, which is a hard thing to do. McDonald's is not America. I know, I completely understand that many people associate McDonald's to, and when you talk about American chefs, but America has just McDonald's. I'm like, it's okay, they're stereotyped. It's helping them to enter the American brand into the world. So soon it will happen that, I understand what you said, everybody's about fine dining. We've all risen from casual dining, all of us. Yeah, all of us risen from casual dining. I remember people used to, once I had to set a benchmark about stereotyping, breaking that, I sold a meal for $38,000 per person. $38,000 per person, one meal. And it was a fundraiser, and I said, I'm going to put a benchmark on this. This is the exact amount what you can donate to any representative of a presidential nominee. So I said, let's put that thing. It takes time, it really takes time, and you cannot just say that overnight the things are going to change. It's going to be, maybe we don't have a dent in the global market. Maybe the next generation helps to understand what we were trying to do, and they penetrate the market. Maybe generation after them penetrates the market as a mainstream, as what has happened. People have been struggling for years to get into markets. And it's fantastic that today we have a full room talking about India's soft power. We're already winning, actually. At least for me.
What about you, Rohit? I mean, you debuted after London, and of course, Indian accent is legend in India, in New York. What was that experience like for you? I think you finished a year now.
We've actually finished over, almost going to be our third year. So it's been very, very gratifying. I entered that city with a lot of trepidation. It's a difficult city especially for an Indian company to come into. It was very challenging. But I'm very happy to say that out of all 3 restaurants, and all 3 Touchwood are doing well, New York is actually the most successful. We broke the glass ceiling to some extent. We're at about $130 per head for dinner, which takes Indian food to a different level because Indian food hasn't really been able to reach that kind of level so far. So we've been very, very fortunate. I'd like to actually get into fast casual and even quick service in America. I think there's a great opportunity out there. I was talking to one of the top chefs in America, a guy called David Chang, and he'd actually predicted that Indian accent would fail. That was 3 years ago when I went and I was very demoralized. And he said, listen, I'll join you. Let's do Indian fast food. I don't think you should do $100 per head Indian restaurant at all. And I was pretty worried when he said that, but so far so good. I don't know, maybe his prophetic words will play out one day, but right now it's doing okay. What's very interesting is that 11 Madison Park, which is #1 on the list last year, I think this year they may have slipped, has dosa on the menu. Jean-Georges, one of the legendary chefs, is also serving dosa. Now, dosa is one of the most humble, it is a street food, and they've actually elevated it. They've put dosa on the menu, both these restaurants, which is fascinating. So Indian food, I think, has come into the mainstream now. It is something which over a period of, it's taken longer than expected. And like he rightfully pointed out, there was this whole innuendos about Thai food being cheap. And it is getting elevated, but people know that they will only pay that much for Thai food. And that's what has been happening for Indian. But it's changing a lot. In fact, more so in London. London, some of the top restaurants are Indian, and they are, at a fairly high price. New York, there's just a few, Vikas's, mine, that have actually broken that glass ceiling. But it's going to happen. And I think the great opportunity actually is in quick service. Nobody's done that. There's no Indian chain in India, a chain of Indian fast food in India. Forget about around the world.
No, I remember when I was a student in the US, and the closest I used to get to any kind of Indian food was Taco Bell and the burritos, because they would feel like our, rolls. So, with lots of hot sauce. So that was an experience that I had very often. And I know, like, even an Indian accent, we have this hard candy for our foreign guests, which is very typical to India, called fatafat. And you serve that as I don't know what, not in a amuse-bouche, but by the end of the meal, sort of. So there's a lot of familiarity in, although you do high cuisine, in terms of what you bring. And I'm looking forward to the quick service restaurant, because I think that's the fastest way to really mainstream cuisine in the way that we look at it. And Chef Gill, we were speaking earlier, and I was very keen to talk about, of course, ITC kitchens, because who hasn't carried those dal makhani cans with them when they go back wherever they come from, and pop them open and heat them. But you said, let's look to the future, because you said food is about the future, and I thought that was very profound, because it is about the future, really, food.
You see, when we talk about the food, and I believe that, like, basically, if we suppose opening a restaurant, and we are making a menu today, we are not making the menu keeping the past in mind. We keep in mind is the next 10 years that how the diner is going to change, how the food habits are going to change, and how my menu can run for next 4 or 5 years. When menu, I'm saying it's not the dishes keep changing, but the concept. So you have to think about future when you talk about food. And if we have to talk about food and improve the food habits or disseminate the knowledge down the line, it is to the younger, not to the older people. They have enough knowledge, they might be having, but it is for the younger. So when we talk about food, we talk about food for the future. So that is what I keep stressing on, that we have to talk about the knowledge of food. We have to disseminate that knowledge to the people, to our own people and to the rest of the world also, if it is right. Because if we see, you know, it's a maybe a coincidence or whatever it is, but in an ancient time, our food has evolved, you know, on two pillars. One is wellness, the other is sustainability. Isn't that the concerns of today? Both are the concerns of today's world. But our food has evolved on this. See the soft power, and the biggest soft power is the knowledge. Not the physical things here and there, it's the knowledge. This is going to be the superpower of the world. If we can understand our food, if we can understand the philosophies behind our food. So, and this is the future. And that science was the wellness and the sustainability was correct that time also. It was absolutely right that time in the medieval time, now present also, and I'm sure it is right for the future also. The world is struggling for these two things. But there are hundreds of examples. There are hundreds of, you know, reasons you have in our science that how the food to be made sustainable. Like for example, I was just talking to my friend yesterday also. These days a lot of flowers have come on the food. A lot of flowers people are using on the food. And many people think that in India they don't use flowers. But every act in our cooking is to keep the harmony with the nature. Flowers look very pretty when they are on the plant. Not to eat that time. When flowers are not good for the plant, they are dying. India use all kind of flowers, but they make sherbets, they make relishes, they cook with the food. Every flower is used, which is edible flower, but not as a flower on the plate. That is sustainability. And that is from the ancient time we do that. And we have hundreds of recipes where flowers are used. Seasonal flowers, when they finish their season, and then they are used in the food. Not when they look pretty on the plants and they put it in the plate to eat or waste. So that's the future. So even in Indian food, we can go into the future, we can think about the future with the hundreds of examples what we have in our gastronomy.
And there was one other thing that you said, if you could tell us a little briefly about that, which I again thought was very beautiful, was about the philosophy. In the West, of course, we have this concept of soul food, but then you spoke of our own cooking methods where there is approximation and everything is a pinch of this and a pinch of that, and it's all really in the cook's hand. There isn't any measure as such, and how that links with our philosophy, really, doesn't it?
You see, like, I'll just tell you in one sentence the gastrosemantics of Indian food. And it's written, you know, in our books, you know, that our food is deeply grounded with 5 elements of the nature, 5 senses, 3 humors, 3 strands are the Rasic, Sattvic, Tamasic, we all know. Humors are Vata, Kapha, Pitta. 6 savors. It's a great science of 6 savors we have. And 9 feelings. That's our food. You know, when the food falls in this gastrosemantic, it gives happiness to everyone. And in our gastronomy, there's so much to, you know, see, you know, and to learn. Like, you know, in our gastronomy, the textures are defined, not hard, soft, very soft, or liquid. No. They are defined that the food is consumed with the various ways in the body. That is, you masticate the food, is a different texture. You drink the food, is a different texture. You swallow the food, is a different texture. You suck the food, is a different texture. You lick the food, is a different texture. It is very important to experience all these textures in a meal. Your body gets the satisfaction. Your brain gets satisfaction and happiness comes in the food, in the mind and the food in your body, and digestion is much better. So it's a great, there are a lot of things which in our food we can discuss and which we should apply into our daily regular food to make it much better.
Thank you, Chef. And now to you, Chef Vikas, you know, a little bit controversial, but we saw what happened with, you don't know why died. You didn't expect this one, did you? Okay. No, but we saw recently what happened with Chef Atul Kochhar and his comments on Twitter and the sort of backlash and then subsequently the restaurant deal that didn't come through. Now, as a chef who is very much in the public eye, you know, a lot of media interaction, certainly a celebrity chef, and also an ambassador in many ways, you know, unofficial ambassadors, people like you are. What are the issues that you face, you know, navigating, of course, the cultural differences, as well as, you know, sometimes these very, in these outrage-ridden times, social media presence, commentary, all of those kind of situations. How do you balance the two? Because you represent Indian food, you also represent yourself, and there's just such a high level of accountability and outrage today.
You know, Indian food, when we talk about, it's actually our greatest strength because it's the real form of secularism and democracy. It is very difficult to remove any layer of the society from the food which is on the plate. It's such an amalgamation of all the dynasties which have been here and all the people which have represented or been in our country. From the basic cuisine, what we eat, to the layers of food which have been coming with the immigrants to this country. It is very difficult to remove yourself from any layer. This is the block of that cards which will fall down if you try to remove anyone from this. And that's the basic fabric of India. This is the India we absolutely love. Where, you know, just a few weeks back, I had written a post which we got a call from some of the most powerful person who controls the planet social media said, this was your greatest post till now. I said that, you know, I was born in a Hindu family. I was raised in a Sikh temple at the community kitchens. I was saved by a Muslim family when there were riots in this country. My first teacher was actually an Indian Jew. I was sheltered in rescue missions which were run by Mother Teresa's. We've all eaten there. I said, I was in the Jain temples and Parsis were actually one of the first employers I had. So we're just saying that it is impossible for us to say that I'm singular in this country when your real true self is very plural. Our basic fabric is, and that person commented, he is of Jewish heritage, who did not know that how much research I'd done in Jewish Indian food and community and the cultures, which is a very small community, but it is still significant because India is the only country in the world where we have, touch wood, we have no riots, there have been no discrimination or anti-Semitism in this country ever in our history, which is the true fabric of India. And for someone to comment like that, it was little like, especially food. We have no idea who was raising this food or who was owning the farms or the people who actually, like, you know, collected that grain or what was their religion or their faith. And, you know, being born and raised in Amritsar, which is my hometown, and my first experience of food was actually the greatest gift my grandmother gave me was Golden Temple in Amritsar. And we're the community kitchen of the Sikhs. They have no discrimination. There's no question asked where you come from, how rich you are, how poor you are. You're just made to sit on the ground. And that was actually my first documentary, which was shown at almost most of the Ivy League colleges in America. And they invited me to speak at Oxford, Buckingham Palace. At the White House, they screened the documentary, which talked about that Indian food is one of the greatest representation of pluralism. If you want to study India, the first thing is that our food is not just about the taste, it's the sources, it's how it has combined together and become enriched through all these centuries.
No, I genuinely feel that Atul Kochhar wasn't really thinking. It gets hot in the kitchen. He saw a tweet. I mean, mean, I haven't spoken to him after that. It's kind of odd to.
People after my like to comment. I didn't even read a lot.
Yeah, so you know, I immediately called up Manish, our chef, who also has hundreds of thousands of followers. I said, Manish, you just read about what Atul did. He said, sir, I'd never comment on anything other than my own food. So I said, be careful, because sometimes you get carried away. So, so I feel sorry. I'm not sure, you know, what his reason was, and he has apologized. And I think he's lost a lot. He lost a lot of his restaurants. It just shows the risk. It just shows what a double-edged sword social media can be. You know, it's a fantastic boon, and yet you've got to be very careful. I'm lucky. I can barely handle my own 300 emails a day, so I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. Don't intend to be ever. But one has to be careful, I guess. You know, as again, I'd like to just, I have no idea why he did it. I think he's paid pretty dearly for it. And one just has to be careful and not comment on other people, and definitely not on religion, ever.
Should we open this up to the audience in case, Mr. Sinha? That was quick.
Indian food outside, which I normally avoid. The Indian food is, the philosophy is different. So we don't have this concept of plating. In the West, I order a dish for myself, she orders a dish for herself. We get the tandoori chicken and the kadhai paneer and split it up and eat it. And in order to therefore develop and eat your lovely golgappas, which are 1 inch by half an inch, chefs have used a lot of creativity. Have always been influenced by, what was it, molecular, etc., etc. But somehow in the creativity process, do you think you lose out on the identity, in the sense that if you're marketing Indian food, or Japanese food, or Thai food, there has to be an element of uniqueness to it. But when you get a piece of meat on your plate, and it's smoldering, lots of dry ice, why is it different from anything else?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I guess if you're doing an authentic dish, you should stay true to it and do it authentically. But chefs are artists, so they are completely, it's entirely their canvas. So if a person wants to experiment and wants to put in Indian flavors, but plate it in a Western way, it's really up to him, and it's up to the guest to then say, I don't like it. I remember, again, with great repetition, I think it was March 2009, is when we created Indian Accent, and I was petrified that people would say this is fusion. Not that there's anything wrong in fusion, but you know, we thought we were creating a new vocabulary of Indian food. And Chef Manish and I, and you know, we traveled around the world, and we wanted the flavors to be Indian. But actually we wanted to pre-plate it, and pre-plating, we didn't invent it. There were people doing it across the world already. But the idea was to make it more accessible. And not only foreigners, but if you look at Indian Accent, I think almost over 50% of the people who come in are below 30. So I think the younger Indian is actually enjoying this modern interpretation of Indian food, because they've grown up having the same curries, the same, you know, family sharing style, and they're finding it slightly more innovative and more accessible. And we get a lot of, almost, again, a majority of the tables have one Indian, one foreigner. So they're actually bringing in their foreign friends and saying, okay, this is the way Indian food is developing right now. So to each his own, as I said, let chefs decide.
Please.
I don't think I need a mic.
Oh.
In the West Village, there's kati roll, and I go there often, and the place is, there's a line out the door. So I think, and it's quite good. I haven't gotten sick. And so I think actually the fast food, or you know, the trend could be there with kati roll. It hasn't actually, they haven't multiplied, which
It's also depending on the people who are running it and the models and the resources and the restrictions. But I totally agree. You know, I was very, very surprised. I had the shrimp roll and I was like, holy God. And they had planned it out of shelling it out at the right time. It had the right temperature. And I was surprised. I was very pleasantly surprised. You know, it takes a first step. And, you know, when talking about West Village and all these places, it's still very price sensitive. These are still, and I think what they are doing is making a good equation or making a ground. I'm sure within the next time we sit together in this panel, if you do, there will be someone who's broken this code of quick service in America. Because when you're looking at Chipotle, if you're looking at, you know, I'm not saying it as a great reference because what's happening now. If you look at Chipotle, what happened to it, they actually broke down the Mexican cuisine or some of the parts of Latin, you know, it's always a problem saying what is the origin. But they have done it, they had done it pretty well as a model, and it actually applies a lot to Indian cuisine like that. We have a lot of similarities with that cuisine, but the way they broke it down was fantastic. I think somebody had to put down the model, and then they need to have a muscle to pull it off. If they haven't expanded, it's like somebody big is not paying attention. McDonald's paid attention to Chipotle. And, you know, I was studying at NYU that time, and we had to do a report on Chipotle, and I did not know what Chipotle was. And they said, you know, this is going to get acquired by Wall Street, by somebody, big hedge fund. And I'm like, really? Like, it's just like a buffet. But they had this whole illusion of creating fresh, something is going on in the back. You know. It will take time, it will get attention, and somebody's going to buy it. I know that. They're moving in the right direction, absolutely.
Actually, you know, you're so right, Jonathan. I remember eating at the Kati Roll company that you mentioned maybe 15 years ago. And I often wondered why they didn't. Then I saw them in London, and I was very impressed, and I said, okay, they've opened. But now they've only had one unit in London. So Vikas is right. If you have the financial muscle and you actually put in that money, it's like what happened to Shake Shack. You know, I mean, burgers are burgers are burgers. Now he opens 14 Shake Shacks and gets $1 billion valuation. So it requires the financial muscle and probably the restaurating expertise to be able to expand. But the time has come. Somebody's going to do it.
So that's what I'm saying. You know, the technology has to come in. People have to understand our basic food, and then the technology has to come in so that the food can be produced not only by the skilled people, or the skilled people are only the central place, but the outlets can be run by the non-skilled people. But the technology takes over that. That's what we have to create. So that's what I mean to say is that all the science people, all the engineers and everybody, the doctors, must work on that how we can take Indian food to the masses. And in all service design, whether it's a fast food, QSR, or a fine food restaurant, or the casual restaurant.
Your dal makhni is really good, by the way. Your dal makhni is wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick question about
down the recipe you want.
you know, proprietary, you know, ownership. Like, for example, cheese or wine. You know how it's associated with the French. And I know with, for example, feta cheese. I mean, countries went to legal battle over it. You know, over provenance. Is it possible to do that with India, you know, in terms of, you know, like our turmeric lattes, we never thought of that, but they were a rage. So are there products that we have, Chef?
Sorry. In history, have you heard of any time in human history where India's gone on a war for something? Historically, India's never been on war for anything. It's never attacked any country for war till it's attacked. But I think there would be a time when people will talk about this legal. I remember, Chef, the whole thing was Rasgulla between Odisha and Bengal. And they kept on fighting. Yeah. It was interesting. At least people want to have the pride of heritage. It would happen. And what we just spoke about, Kati roll, we just increased the equity. In this room, we spoke about them, we multiplied the equity. This is what happens. This is exactly what happened to Danny Meyer. The equity was much bigger than the product. In that little Madison Garden, when we used to stand for 2 hours for the line, and we used to curse them that, you know, this is terrible, but we would not leave the line, equity. And we come back and we had the burger, we complained half an hour, and took us 2 minutes to finish the burger. And it's like, in the freezing cold, New Yorkers who don't wait for anything, They don't even wait to take a picture with a celebrity. Like in the restaurant, Tom Cruise is sitting. People say, I have no patience to take a picture with Tom Cruise. It's like he's sitting next to you. No, but they had to wait. That to equity was worth $1 billion, Rohit, I think. That was worth. And that is soon, you said there were lines outside Kati Road. Equity. It means people will pay attention. Eventually, when you're, the sun doesn't need to announce when it's rising. Eventually, people will draw the curtain, do anything, but the sun has risen. And that's going to happen to these small mom and pop companies which are working so diligently.
Just two low dining questions for Chef Gill. Why is it that airline food is universally atrocious? One. Second thing, related question. Why is it that no airline ever gets, especially outside India, gets the meaning of the word vegetarian?
That's a very interesting question, and I try to answer very quickly because otherwise it's a very long answer for this. You see, somewhere you forget about airline. You go to any restaurant in India for vegetarian restaurants or non-vegetarian restaurant, there is a vegetarian dish. And you will surprise that we people are working so many years, even Mr. Khattar, it's very difficult to make vegetarians happy in a catering business. Very difficult. It is only because we don't understand vegetarians. You will be surprised that since birth I am a vegetarian. I only taste meats, but I understand vegetarian very well. The food is cooked by non-vegetarian cooks. Vegetarian food is cooked by non-vegetarian cooks in the catering. That is the reason, and non-vegetarian cooks doesn't know how to cook vegetarian food. They are two different cookery. One has to understand that. And that is why if you go to even today, you check from now onward, even in a 5-star hotel or in a restaurant or a small place, if there are about 20 to 24 dishes of vegetarian, there will be 12, 14 paneers with different names. Malai kofta, labab dar, ye dar, wo dar, whatever it is. But there will be 12, 14 paneer dishes. And if you ask me if any vegetarian is here, true vegetarian, they don't like paneer. They don't like paneer. After paneer, then there will be one item will be in that round the year is mixed vegetable, which we vegetarians don't know what is mixed vegetable. We never cook at home. We never eat. Then there will be 3 or 4 mushroom dishes. Vegetarians again doesn't like mushrooms. Happily. Then there will be now recently the 2-3 items more has come of corn, American corn. And then there will be a dal. And somewhere then in the menus, and maybe in one of my hotels also possible, that people have forgotten about the dal. They sit in black dal and yellow dal. What does it mean? What is yellow dal? It has to be moong, it has to be masoor, it has to be, chana dal, it has to be tur dal. We are a country of lentils. But that is the situation of vegetarian food in the catering industry. We have to change it. We have to, understand. And the people and the best of the chefs, they say, oh, people like this food, that's why we cook it. No, you don't offer them the food. If you offer them the food, you offer them the seasonal food or the vegetables, they will definitely order. And mind it, India, the rich people are vegetarian. You can make a lot of money from them. If you really understand them and serve them the food. If anybody wants to see the example of this food, must go and check the vegetarian restaurant in ITC, Chennai, Grand Chola in Chennai. See that restaurant is based on Ayurvedic principles and a vegetarian restaurant. Experience that and listen.
Chef, one more thing is there. When I was running Purnima, it was in Times Square. So I said, let's focus on vegetarian food. So somebody said, let's hire a vegetarian chef. So we hired a vegetarian chef. It was so difficult for him to work. Oh, you can't put chicken here. There was more trouble in the kitchen because he would not touch non-bread dishes. This refrigerator is mine, this is mine, but it was like, he was the best, you're right. He had more empathy, that was, I figured out. He had more empathy toward vegetarians. And that was a good thing. But on functioning wise, it was very hard to function with him because he had problem with spoons also. You just this, that. But in the real running kitchen, it was very difficult.
But because it is difficult, so, but we have to do that. Yeah. Otherwise, we will not be able to. We have to. And it will pay you back. I guarantee you it will pay you back. But if you can communicate to people that how much care you take of the vegetarian food.
But I loved those 2 months he was in the restaurant, then he had a fight, he left. But those 2 months, you were right. The energy in the vegetarian food was amazing. He would just make cauliflower fresh in the afternoon for lunch. It was possibly the best cauliflower made on low heat, the way we used to cook at home. He used to make the best okra. He had only 6 dishes. And people really, especially Americans, really appreciate that food without the big sauces and everything. Because the non-veg chef, he would put sauce in everything, throw. And even how much you would fight and control that. But you're right. There has to be a time when you have enough funding to say that, you know, this is the vegetarian section of the kitchen, and we're going to run it diligently. And I assure you, you're right, because of the energy they give to the food. The non-veg, somehow chefs feel the vegetarian is inferior somehow, and they just discard it. And this was very torturous for you watching kitchen run like that. But you know, eventually I'm sure we'll take a stand and this would change.
Veganism is really picking up in the US, and I know Deepika is here, so she's clapping already, and I think we have a lot of vegetarians in the audience. But why do you think that is? Because here we always seem to be debating meat, but in America, veganism is the big thing.
We actually have a vegan tasting menu now at all 3 Indian accents. Such a massive, massive market for vegan. So I guess it's this health kick, and it's here to stay. It began maybe more as from a point of view of health, but now it's become a lifestyle choice. So we'll have to adapt to it.
I think a little differently, with all respect to the vegan. You know, vegan is a new phenomena, is a new fad or whatever. It might be a reality, I have no idea. It might be a reality, I have no idea. We might know after 50, 60 years or 100 years that it is the right thing or wrong thing. But the vegetarian Indian way is established from centuries, which is good for health. Now, in food, with all respect, in food, no research or no facts get established in 30, 40 years. It takes time. Let one generation pass through. Let's see the effect on the next generation with this food, what happens. So, with all respect, I'm not saying that, but we have to see that with time, that it is right or wrong, because there are a lot of things. Incidentally, you know, we all know nutrition has become a science only last 60, 70 years. There was no science called nutrition. But we have that science here. We have done those steps. From generation to generation, things are trialed and tested. But the science is new. New things are happening. New things are coming. Let's see. Let's wait. Let's try them also, with all respect. But don't just reject your own traditions also, which are established from generation to generation.
We're wrapping up, but I'll just get questions from the ladies, because, so could you all just quickly stand up, ask your question? And then Shobha, and then here.
You mentioned Chipotle, and I've noticed that there's a couple of chains that are Indian-based on that model, where you pick your base of rice and roti and then move on to protein and et cetera. What is the scope possibly of that sort of model coming to India as a Western chain, but with Indian theme, to maybe compete with the McDonald's that have come to India and are taking up market share?
Okay, and the next question, and then we'll just combine all three and ask the panel to answer.
Namaskar. There are 2 types of food prepared: household consumption and commercial food. The commercial space is overwhelmingly led by the males, where the female gender occupies near 100% household cooking. So what are the reasons for such a skewed gender ratio, and how can we overcome it?
Like fashion designers. This is the last one. Oh wait, one, okay. We've got two, the ladies, I'm a little gender biased, sorry. So we've got to get their questions. Oh my God, one more lady.
Mine's really just a way of acknowledging how food and gastrodiplomacy go hand in hand with soft power. And one of it is there are models in Los Angeles which merge fusions, whether it's Kogi trucks, Korean, Mexican, or close to USC, Indian and Mexican. Chicken tikka masala burritos, so that. But it's teaching your local economy how to cook your food and then tell the story. So these are being done by a lot of Latino immigrant populations who are learning your history, your philosophy, your cuisine, your memories through food. And then it spreads throughout the city, and I'm sure that can be done elsewhere and globally.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll take your answer first. So for women, we as restaurateurs, we crave having women chefs in the kitchen. It's actually very grueling long hours. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, in a sexist way. What happens is, and I've seen this happen, and I've actually counseled their parents, and that's why it's really our generation who has to be more, parents get very nervous about their daughters working 14, 18 hours. And sadly, that's what's happening. We're working, this year actually, I've put even more emphasis. We employ over 1,000 people on work-life balance, because whether you like it or not, old school kitchens and chefs demand the hours, they demand the timing. And that becomes very, very strenuous, more so for the parents of young girls, especially girls when they get married and then they've got other things to do in terms of kids. So unfortunately, I'm a firm believer that women make far better chefs, far better. I just wish we would encourage them more to be in the kitchen. Chipotle lookalikes in India, yes, the time has come. Somebody's got to do it. It's not too difficult at all. So, I mean, we've also flirted with the idea, but haven't really put it into practice yet. But it's going to happen very soon. Pretty sure.
Thank you so
Chula,
much.
where is it open here? Oh, okay. There's also one in DC called Marzi. I saw that. There was also Chipotle lookalike, but I haven't seen Chula. Indie kitchen, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, even Indie and Indie kitchen and Indie. Yes.
I tell you about the women in the kitchen, you know, there are a lot of jobs in the kitchen. The kitchen has multiple jobs, you know. And in the kitchen, there are a lot of jobs which a woman can do the finest way and good quality and consistent. And I can tell you, women keep the good discipline in the kitchen also. That's one. And as from my early days also, always preferred women in the kitchen as much as possible. I can just tell you the incident. We went to the Pusa Institute for the recruitment, and the training manager said all the people who want to join the kitchen come on this side, and the others on this side, because the interview and the test was different. There was one girl, the Rashmi, I still remember her name, Rashmi Bhagat, Rashmi Jingan, she came on this side. I asked her, are you serious? You want to join kitchen? She said, yes. I said, go home. Your appointment letter will reach home. So it's not that we don't encourage, but Mr. Khattar is right. They are not able to sometimes carry on. But the executive chef, senior executive chef of ITC, Bore is a woman. And we have another executive chef. My daughter is a chef. So there are a lot of women in the chef, as a chef. And more I encourage.
And just in... Yes. So we could take that offline, but thank you so very much. And just to add, we just had the first female Indian Michelin star chef out of Bangkok. So it's been a proud year for 2018 for women chefs. So thank you so much, everyone.
Namaskar, and thank you all so much. I request Advaita Kala to honor the other speakers. And I'm really happy that people are concerned and thinking about the food that they eat. Advaita, please honor Mr. Vikas Khanna. Chef Manjit Singh Gill. And Shri Rohit Khattar. I request Shri Dhruv Katoch of India Foundation to kindly honor Advaita Kala. We'll give you all just exactly a 5-minute break before the next session. The next session is on public diplomacy.